Hey, what's up? I'm Shane Morris. I'm a senior executive advisor for Devis, along with being on the board at DataX. I'm an advisor for a little ETL company called Mage as well. And I take my coffee with 2 wooden spoons of sugar, and then I have a milk frother that I use. And so I have a very fancy milk frother. So a lot of frothed milk and sweet and in a French press. That's my coffee.
Have you asked ChatGPT for give me a metaphor about how I can explain this?
Yeah, I'll tell you what's kind of interesting is I experiment a lot with different LLMs. I started messing around with Anthropic and Claude 4, I think, or maybe it's Claude 3, I forget. And I try and see, I do the same prompt to see what response differences I get. One thing that I do believe that large language models fail at is applying analogies and metaphors to people's lives, because there's a certain type of lived experience that a large language model can't tokenize effectively, because once again, they're just trying to predict the next thing that sounds correct. Whereas if you've lived, in your life and you've been to a doctor and been to a hospital, you can say, hey, this is how a medical record is changed. You're like, oh, I get that. That makes sense. I understand data governance now. Sorta, don't get me wrong. Elation is still a bear to learn, but if you wanted to, you could understand the concepts. And I think that LLMs still fall dramatically short when I'm trying to say, create an analogy. I encourage you, because ChatGPT loves hallucinating. Try and get ChatGPT to come up with an interesting analogy, and it won't. It does terribly at analogies.
Yeah, that is a huge insight because of the non-learned experience or non-lived experience, and how it's almost like the only way that it's going to know about that is if there are enough training data samples on the internet of analogies being created for certain things. And analogies are inherently so abstract that it's hard to make them hold up, and you're towing that line between hallucination and quality analogy.
Yeah, abstraction is inherently artistic in nature. You have to think in a way that isn't directly about what you're talking about. And I do this a lot, when I'm talking to my students about code, right? When I'm trying to explain what they're doing, in Python or SQL, I have to give them another example that they've used in their real world to say, oh, think about it this way. Because to me, and I always kind of come back to this, coding is just giving a computer directions, step-by-step directions. The people who do the best at coding, in my opinion, who are the most efficient, just understand how to give people directions in the dumbest possible way. So, you remember you're giving a logic board, really what a computer is. You're giving a logic board directions, and it's got to be step-by-step, or maybe not step-by-step, or, putting directions in groups and then executing and hoping that you're really, really good at explaining directions, which is why marriage has always been challenging for me when I'm navigating in the town with my wife. I digress.